city has been in the eye of the storm, being on the tipping edge of all of the urban areas in this nation that have suffered high levels of foreclosure, unemployment, and economic devastation. This is just the right place to have a meeting on Meltdown to Recovery.
Beginning in the 1980s, the financial sector took over, and we began to become so materialistic that we were unable to see what was happening to us and to our country.
Somewhere around the 1970s, basically, our political system turned themselves over entirely to capitalists. They let capitalists run the show pretty much as they wanted to run the show.
So the Michigan Welcome Center is for lease?
All this.
It's all closed.
Yeah, there's no tenants in it. And this one is completely empty. It was built to be a mercado and a, you know, kind of a center for cultural activities and things. And it went into foreclosure before it was completed.
And so what's happened is the corporations have been running this country, even more so without regulations over the last 30 years, but running this country, and they've run it into the ground.
That's right.
How can we keep giving these auto corporations billions of dollars that just got a new tranche yesterday? And at the same time, they're closing factories, putting people out of work, and building the same engines that we could build in Trenton and Detroit. They're sending them in from Mexico.
There's never been one economy that we share in this country. Now, whether there are two or three is another question, but there's not been one. And when I did the work in the different low-wage jobs to write the book Nickel and Dime, those were the boom years, you know? And what do you get? $7 an hour, you know, to bust your butt. And then these low-wage jobs that are never going to have any promotion at all. That's what I was finding.
These jobs, for us, this was the only thing that kept us from poverty. Working people work in the plants, right? Yeah. You don't own anything else. You don't have another source of income. You don't have another source of wealth. So when you're not working in the plant, you don't have anything. And then if you lose your contract, you lose your benefits, you lose your health care, your pension, and your kids' tuition. You lose the overtime that gave you vacation. So all of that infrastructure is just falling apart. Everything weighed on these auto contracts. And it didn't weigh on big corporations having all this money. It weighed on auto workers spending this kind of money.
Yeah.
Corporations did not pull themselves up by their bootstraps. You're looking at a woman. I was born in Detroit, but all you have to do is look at me and tell that I'm a product of Africa. Let me tell you a little something about Africa. The Africans who came to this country, who were not volunteering, they weren't waving their hand on the west coast of Africa, saying, "Come get me," to civilize me. There was nothing civilized about the transatlantic slave trade. It was an absolute hate crime against Africans who were transported at gunpoint here and built this country. They also built the industry. See, there was never any reparations paid to those who built this country and never got paid. The reparations went to those who lost the Civil War, the Confederate Army. Those who fled their farm, they got reparations. There was never even 40 acres and a mule. The promises that Frederick Douglass exacted from Abraham Lincoln at the White House were never realized.
I was on the line. We would do the totes, clean the totes out. It was from, you know, parts like from GM Chrysler. that it was slowing down because of the economy, the way it was. Most of my friends said I guess it was closing down because, like I say, it had to do a lot with Chrysler and everything else. So too many businesses are going out of the country, which I wish the government would do something to prevent that, because I think that's putting us in a situation to where what are we going to do? We used to be the wishless country, and what's going on now, right?
Tell me again about the overpass that we just went over. What happened there?
There was a battle where there was a huge strike, and people were there. You know, the workers came. They were met with Henry Ford's goons, and they were beaten, some to death. There were people who were killed. People pulled a strike where they lost lives. They lost lives in that strike. To make the sacrifices, it would bring us to making this place a livable place for working people. We live well here. We've lived well because of those sacrifices, and we would have never had anything without them. We would have had nothing without them. It's a really devastating notion to see how things would end.
We don't have lights. We don't have gas. We don't have water. We got 70,000 homes foreclosed on in 2007, but where the hell is our guts? If we believed in God for real, we wouldn't allow this.
Until the people who are not following us in Lansing and in Washington get the message that we need to replace them, it's just wonderful weekend chatter.
The idea that Grace raised about we've been taught to be consumers. Yes, all of our lives we've been taught to be consumers, we've been taught to be passive. Even within the union, you're taught, oh, you're the worker. You let the officials figure out the strategy. No, we are the ones who have to solve the problem.
That's right.
We have to take the industry and reshape it and retool it. And we have to say there can't be an auto industry. There has to be a transportation and energy industry.
I am among those who sponsored a Marshall Plan for Detroit to repopulate Detroit, to provide universal health care, a single-payer health care in this nation, and looking at Detroit immediately, looking at the opportunity to have government-owned homes made available to people for $1 and give them 3 years free taxes. We want rapid transit in Detroit. In a city with a name like Motown, we ought to have mass transit as a reality. You shouldn't have to hitch a ride from the airport. We ought to be able to go from Detroit to Chicago quickly. And all those things, along with alternative energy, renewable energy, and a greening of Detroit, we want to have as a part of our next paradigm.
America is strong when Detroit is strong.
Yeah!
So let us finish tonight with a prayer for Detroit.
Yeah!
Because it is a prayer for America. And let us understand this. We have not completed a discussion tonight. We got to a lot of your questions, but we didn't get to all of them. We have begun a discussion tonight.
Yeah.